there, folks. Welcome back to the Overflow. My name is Mike Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as the Hatman.
And for those who don't know, the Overflow is the show where every week we answer the questions that we were not able to get to over the past week. So we appreciate you guys showing up for the podcasts. We also, again, want to thank Aiden Paladin for being on the Entertainment Podcast with us, for hanging out for a couple hours and talking all sorts of fun stuff. So let's go ahead and get to the questions. Hatman, shall we? Well, actually, you know what? We're going to decide whether or not we start with politics or entertainment via coin toss.
Go for it.
So, heads is politics, tails is entertainment. Call it in the air.
Heads.
Alright, politics it is.
Alright.
Don't know why I asked you to call it in the air when I already designated what it's going to be, but whatever.
Well, yeah.
I just woke up. I'd like to think I have some excuse. I could be wrong, though. Alright. So, first question we have from the politics side of things is from the Swordsman 100, wants to know, will the political videos that were on VidMe be up on YouTube at all? No. Reason being is I forgot to download them. So, now there wasn't a lot of exclusive that was up there, but the same sort of tone, content-wise, is going to be what's on this channel. I didn't do a vlog this week because I really just didn't have anything to talk about. I really just kind of wanted Valentine's Day, being single and having been divorced for a decade. Like, I don't really want to talk about anything to anyone. So I was feeling much better by the time the podcast came around, but I just, yeah, I didn't have anything I wanted to discuss. If I had said anything, I would have been freaking miserable. So, yeah. But anyway, but no, sadly, I didn't get the chance to download the stuff that I had put on there. I don't really recall anything I had put up there being that interesting, though. But just in my opinion. So, there was one video where I talked about, like, why I could never be an alt-righter. But I didn't really think that it was, like, anything more than just a declaration of what my belief system is, not necessarily an argument against it. I kind of feel like the video I did on the main channel criticizing the skeptic community, that was a much better argument against the alt-right. I put it together in 5 minutes just off the top of my head. So, yeah. But the good news is, you know, like I said, we got the Micah and the Hatman channel that's going to focus on, you know, politics, religious stuff, so on and so forth. So there's that at least. Alright, now a question for both of us. What are the thoughts on the... Oh, this is from Ancestor Empire. What are the thoughts on the Senator Gillibrand's 60 Minutes interview? I haven't seen it.
I didn't see it either. I just read over some comments that she made on it.
Which were?
And nothing really unusual. Like, she said she went from being a moderate upstate New Yorker to being a diehard liberal after meeting victims of gun violence in Brooklyn. And somehow that opened her eyes, but I don't believe that for a second. She said Hillary Clinton is her political role model. Ugh. So, I mean, really, that's all I needed to read.
I'd say, how can you be any more cancer? God.
Well, that's the thing. Now she's looking for a White House bid in 2020, which I don't think is going to work out very well for her.
No. If your claim to fame is trying to be Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump will beat you.
Yeah.
Not to mention, like, oh, I'm all for the victims of gun violence. Are you for the idea about the federal government actually investigating possible threats to children? Because I have a feeling that I got into a really nasty gun debate this morning on Twitter. Not on Twitter, on Reddit. And I was just, like, slapping people. Like, you ever seen that short, The Slap? That was me versus Europe. Just...
Yeah, that's basically been my Twitter lately, too. Just getting mad at gun control stuff. And now, like, the Women's March is trying to organize a student walkout,
which will do nothing
for gun control.
Why don't
preposterous.
you instead ask for active shooter exercises? Why don't you ask for tighter security in your schools? Like, here's somebody that I know asked me about this. Is very anti-gun. Had asked me. She goes, you're a security guard. Why is it that these corporations, have all these active shooter drills and security and all this other stuff, and our schools can't have that? I'm like, well, it's easy. People are willing to shell out the money to have security. Mm-hmm. I said, start a fundraiser. And that's the thing. Security guards aren't that expensive. We're not. Like, if schools wanted to contract out to private security, communities could hire us. And they should. But they don't. There's a better amount of practical solutions to gun violence in school shootings than stripping away people's rights. And I think that the Europeans need to realize that and stay the fuck out of our politics. I'm sorry, but just...
Well, not only that, but...
Let me just say this real quick. Yeah, well, let me say this. If you are a European and you are talking down to us about gun violence, go away. We don't want to hear it.
It's very, very different.
Yeah, it is like, part of our culture.
Yeah. Again, it's a right that is guaranteed by the Constitution. That's the core of the whole gun control debate in the first place.
Well, let's change the terminology there. It's not guaranteed. It's recognized by the Constitution. It's recognized as a basic right, as an inalienable right. And that's something that people don't understand. That you have the right to defend yourself. And to be honest with you, when it comes, and it should be common sense. But then again, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just me being a having been raised by a military guy. It's like, if I'm going to defend myself against a bad guy, I'm going to want the best available weapon on my person to defend myself and my family. Right now, when it comes to assault rifles, the AR-15, or, well, not assault rifles, it's not really an assault rifle, but when it comes to semi-automatic rifles, the AR-15 is numero uno. It's the most comfortable, it's the most easy to fire, you have to clean it a lot. But even then, it's still incredibly accurate. So. Yeah, it's incredibly accurate. It's incredibly efficient. All the things that make it ideal for shooting a bunch of people make it ideal for defending your home from a bunch of people, which you never know when it's going to happen.
No, you don't.
Because, and I know I'm ranting too much on a question that's not even related to this. We have a crime problem in the United States, and on top of that, we have a mental health problem in the United States, neither of which want to be addressed because you're going to offend somebody. Well, I don't give a shit. We have a problem. We need to fix it.
Absolutely.
If you want to debate that with me, if you want to discuss that with me and solutions on that, ask away. You talk about taking my guns, my first instinct is going to be the load one, is to put ammo in one of them and say, come and take it. And I think that most Americans are like that.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this too. It's a lot easier and I think more fruitful to actually have a debate about gun control with people who know, basically people who have owned and operated firearms before. Like, who know what they're talking about. I see so often people saying, we need to ban semi-automatic guns, and it's like, do you understand what semi-automatic means, or are you just conflating it with full auto? The sorts of people who think the AR in AR-15 stands for assault rifle.
Yeah.
Those kinds of morons. Freaking Dianne Feinstein holding up a rifle with sticking her finger straight on the trigger. That sort of idiocy.
Yeah, basically. I remember, just to close this out, like one argument that somebody had put on there was, against me is like, all right, let me say this. If you put "ma" and then X behind it, like in this particular case, "ma rights," you're an asshole, and you don't know how to argue. Because all I did was put "ma Europe." Because fuck Europe. You have what's her face? Angela Merkel. Don't start with me. You have a politician that allowed for the rape of many people for migrants. So don't come to me with moral superiority, motherfucker.
1,100 people.
We don't have Muslim ghettos that cops don't dare go into.
1,100 people by 2,000 migrant men, and that was just the New Year's Eve thing.
Imagine if your civilians had guns. You wouldn't have this problem. All right. Thoughts on Iceland wanting to ban circumcisions from Ray Vankman?
That's is it all circumcisions or just circumcisions?
I'm not sure. It looks like all of them. And of course,
very difficult for the Jews.
I was about to say they're already protesting. Because at the end of the day, it's not just a body; it's a religious thing.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking as someone who is snipped, 10 out of 10 would snip again.
Speaking as someone who is not, would not.
Well, it's different for everyone, but for me,
exactly.
It was part of a religious practice. I mean,
obviously not for me. So.
Yeah, every man in my family is. So with that in mind, it's like it's a religious practice for some Christians. It's a religious practice for Jews in general. And a lot of the arguments against it, I've looked into them. They weren't very accurate. You know, that it's a form of mutilation. Not particularly. If it's botched, certainly, but the amount of botched circumcisions out there is actually a very low number. And I'm not big on the whole baby out with the bathwater argument. Because it basically devolves into ban all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it patently ridiculous. You know,
yeah.
I think that there's a lot of fear-mongering around circumcision that I think is unwarranted. And, you know, like I said, the amount of men where it affects their performance is, again, very small, and it's because the procedure was not done properly. So,
personally, I don't like it. But it's one of those things where I think if you try to regulate it at all, to basically ban it except for religious purposes, so to say, people are going to find loopholes in that and exploit them, or they're going to try and do it themselves and screw everything up, and that's just going to cause all kinds of issues. So it's like, for me, I say just leave it legal, because it's a lot more of a headache otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
See, the issue for me is infants do not have bodily autonomy. Like that, the thought of that they do not have the rights to their own body until they're, you know, mature is pretty crazy. But at the same time, it's like, I also don't think it's right to put your kids on hormones, you know, if they want to transition, for example. I think that's completely messed up too. But it's a really weird place you get into when you start talking about regulating that sort of stuff. It's just very, very complicated.
I blame Christopher Hitchens for this discussion. No, I'm being dead serious. In his book, I want to say it's not the God Delusion. God is Not Good. He argues against circumcision, and most of his arguments are salacious at best. But then again, a lot of his arguments in that book are salacious at best.
Well.
Great journalist, terrible with theology.
Not wrong.
All right, Damien X24 247 wants to know: do you think that American schools will now attempt to increase security on campus, or are the legislators too cheap to allocate funds? They are too cheap.
Yeah, that is absolutely not going to happen. I mean, school funding is already like at least in North Carolina, and I'm pretty sure it's most cases all over the nation. Funding for schools is ridiculously low. That's like the first thing that can get cut from budgets, and the first thing that usually gets cut in budgets.
Well, the big problem isn't so much the funding from what I've seen. It's the way that the funds are spent. Because the funds never make it past the superintendents. And you know who's pocketing that. Like, when you see a school superintendent driving down the street in a Mercedes, there's a problem
here.
But that's because government just writes schools a check, and there's no oversight committee.
Not to mention, it also goes straight to the athletic program.
There's that too.
That's something that really irked me, because they cut a lot of our arts classes just so they could renovate the gym.
Yeah.
Because they needed new flooring apparently. Well, I don't know why, but
and that's part of the problem is there is no oversight. You know, no. And here's my thing with people on the left is that they consistently say, you know, well, we need more funding for schools. We need more funding for schools. And then when we give more funding to schools and the schools don't get better and then we want to cut the funding, they throw a fit. It's like, well, if you love big government so much, why don't you demand oversight committees? Why don't you demand inspectors who get full access to the books? I could compromise with that. I'd be okay with it. I think it would make sense. I'd do it. Go into a school, say, all right, you're going to show me the books. You're going to show me why there are multiple exits to this school when you've had shooting threats as opposed to just one. And why all the other exits are not rigged with alarms. You're going to tell me why you don't have guards posted. You know, the whole 9 yards. And there has to be that. There has to be oversight. There has to be school choice as well.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And without these things, it just shows that education is not really thought through on a practical level. You think if you throw the kids in there that they're just going to learn and get better. Well, maybe not. Because there are some people out there I've met where they're very honest with me. It's like they're like, my sucked. You know, here in Bloomington, Bloomington, Illinois is where I live, and I don't mind telling people that. A lot of people here are transplants from Chicago or somewhere else. I'm a transplant myself. And they have told me, it's like they're districted to a specific school that blows when a better school is one train ride away.
Mm-hmm. Or in some cases, at least like here, it's just 10 more minutes up the road.
Yeah. And that school is much more secure. It has better teachers.
Mm-hmm. It's not overcrowded.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a problem we had big time. We were literally hundreds of students over capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were, good God, I think it was like 1,400 at its height when I was at high school.
Mm-hmm.
We were only supposed to have about 1,000.
Wow.
That was like close to 50% over capacity. It's like 14 something.
Sheesh.
It was, yeah.
But that's the problem in general is that, you know, we always if leftists and their ideas actually worked, we'd have the best society ever. But they don't, because they don't think. Because they deal with the fantasy Bernie Sanders world of kitten farts and rainbows and unicorns that doesn't frickin' exist, whereas people who are center and on the right then deal with what is actually there. You know, a conservative says, make lemonade out of lemons. A person on the left complains that they're not apples.
I found that conservative arguments, more often than not, are more based in logic. Well, leftist, liberal, whatever you would want to call it, arguments are more based in emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to have both, because you do need both perspectives in order to govern efficiently. But you can't let one always trump the other. The problem is the left now wants that one to be the only.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why we've seen those think pieces like, you know, it's time to stop arguing facts and start arguing emotions. Like, that's wrong. I mean, it's just like when we talk about gun control stuff. We can talk about statistics and whatnot, but that's not gonna do anything for someone who's already made their minds up that they want the Second Amendment revoked.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason why we have the Second Amendment in general, is to enshrine it. To say, like this is the line. You know, these rights shall not be infringed.
Yep, exactly. Getting back to the schools thing, I actually was just reminded of something. My middle school actually had metal detectors. I believe there was a gun threat there many years before I actually got there. And as a result, they had bought metal detectors for all students to walk through. You only went through one entrance to get inside the building. You would have to walk through metal detectors. But by the time I got there, they were just sort of pushed off to the side and not used anymore. Why? Nobody really knew. But we had them. We saw them. They were there.
Yeah, and they should be.
But nobody used them. I don't know why.
Security is not difficult, at least from my perspective. And I say that, you know, but granted, I'm technically a security professional. But
we had police officers. We had armed police officers at my middle and high school while I was there.
And that's what it should be. It should be armed cops or armed private guards. One or the other.
I mean, you can't just put up a gun-free zone sign and expect that to save people. It's not. Because
criminals don't care.
In the podcast. Yeah. What criminal is going to be stopped by a sign?
I have yet to meet one.
Then again, I'm pretty sure that you haven't met many, you know, criminals like that.
I was about to say, can a criminal really be stopped by swipe or no swiping? Give me a fucking break.
I mean, look, just put it into a little, you know, perspective that's easier to swallow. Most people have run stop signs at some point in their life.
Yeah.
Even those can't stop people.
Exactly. All right. Eclectic 1995 asks, what are our opinions of military parades?
Oh, I know what this is in reference to.
Yep.
I don't really see an issue with it. I think it's a little, you know, odd, I guess, but I think the reason why is because we're not really used to it, whereas we see images of like dictators presiding over, you know, big parades with tanks and everything, and you know, that's obviously my first image is going to be of Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why I'm sort of like, I don't know, because, you know, that's not really something that we've experienced before.
I am just of the opinion that it would make more sense if we had just won a war. Like, if we had done it, like, right after ISIS was beat, it would make a little bit more sense. But, like, here, like, Now?
Or after, like, Bin Laden was killed or something.
Yeah, so something along those lines. Like, that would have made sense. You know, and honor the military folks. Like, that would be great. But, like, just random military parade, I don't think it's a good idea. I think that it's like, let's wait till we have something to celebrate.
Mm.
You know?
What about, like, an Armed Forces Day parade or something?
Maybe that could work. You know, have, like, an annual thing. But, like, do it on Veterans Day. Like, that wouldn't be a bad idea, I don't think. But, and then that's kind of what Trump's all about, is honoring veterans. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that'd be the best way to do it. So, yeah, like, after a combat victory. Or, you know, major victory, not just a combat victory.
Yeah, basically. All right, let's go on to entertainment.
All right,
let's this one's just for me. What is my favorite Venom storyline from the current run, crossovers included? Let me think here. I want to say the my two favorites have been solo issues, actually, not like arcs. That's the weird thing. The arcs are good. I thought The Land Before Crime was a lot of fun, but issue 150 and issue, I want to say 154. Let me look it up real quick. Were both really good because they're very psychological. And with Eddie Brock, I feel that psychology is a necessary bit with him. You have to understand his mind. You have to understand what he's thinking. Let me have a look here. I know I purchased it on Comixology, so it's not going to be hard to look up. Da, 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 da. Yeah, Venom 154. So, yeah, 150 and 154 have been my two favorites so far. The reason just being because it's intriguing. It's intriguing to look into the mind of Eddie Brock and the symbiote and see exactly how they are starting to bond or rebond, I should say, and either get back to a sense of normalcy or just get back to something. So it's intriguing. Those would probably be my favorites. Another Venom question from the Almighty Lolly. what would be your ideal director for a Venom movie? Well, I think that what's his face that we have right now is a good choice. And what's his name? Ruben Fleischer. I mean, that's not a bad choice at all. I mean, like, if I could pick any director from all throughout time to direct this film, it would probably be either John Carpenter.
Oh, that's what I was about to say.
I
was about to say Carpenter.
Or who's the guy who directed Predator?
Oh.
Because he directed Die Hard as well.
God. Nope. It's not coming to me.
I'll look it up. John something. John McTiernan. It's a really good director.
Going to come to me.
Well, no, let me put it this way. I think that John McTiernan would be good for a sequel. You know, the first movie, it looks like it's going to be a horror movie, which is perfect.
John Carpenter.
Yeah, so John Carpenter would be a good feel. For the second one, when Eddie is established as a character, you want an action film. And John McTiernan would definitely be my pick. I think he's...
I'd take that for ultimate... Or no.
He's incredible when it comes to action
Maximum
direction.
Carnage. There we go.
Yeah. Well, and they could, now that Marvel owns owns all the Fox stuff, and Sony, it looks like, may sell the Spider-Man license back to them. We could have that at some point because you've got all the players, or they have the licensing to all of them. You've got Venom, Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Fist. Who else was in that? Hero-wise, Deathlock, who was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So yeah, you could do that. Cloak and Dagger. That would be a really interesting crossover to have. Though the problem is that Maximum Carnage is a very R-rated story. I don't know if you could really do it that well.
You might could do it as like a Netflix series. So each episode adapting one of the issues.
It'd be interesting, but no fucking like good mojo gun. Fuck that. That was stupid. I'm glad they cut it out of the video game.
No more Mr. Nice Venom.
Just Iron Fist with a giant gun strapped to him. It's putting out good vibes, yo. Like, what the fuck? I don't like that's what depresses me about that comic. Like the rest of it is good. It's just that like really like bleh. No bueno. All right. Mr. Monkey Lint wants to know, does anyone think the hyper-politicization of the Black Panther will hurt its box office? If so, will the studio learn their lesson or go full SJW? Well, the weekend numbers are in, and yeah, it's doing pretty well. So
no, the weekend numbers are not in yet. We just have the Thursday night numbers. And
I'm sorry, the Thursday night numbers. What are the Thursday night numbers?
Or opening day numbers. I'm sorry. Thursday night opening day, it's already Marvel's third best opening.
There we go.
It's okay. So I just went and saw it today. I liked it a lot. First off, but second, the first two showings of the day were sold out. As in, like 11:40 and noon were sold out. That does not happen in the city that I'm living in. That does not happen even for Marvel movies. Even for like Star Wars, that does not happen. You can usually get in. The crowds were swarming. I've never seen a theater that packed outside of a midnight release.
My theater was packed. Like, for me to get a decent seat to see the movie, I would have had to wait an hour to choose, because my theater has choose your own seating, and the only things available were like very much front row. So I was at the bottom left corner. So I couldn't even, like, when I reviewed the movie, I couldn't, like, remark on the CG because I could barely see it. The scene had to be well lit, and the fight scene in the caves was not. So I could tell what was going on, but it didn't really, like, it was like watching, like, a really bad torrent. So I'm gonna see it again eventually.
But no, it's not going to. And let's be fair too. The politicization of it came from journalists, really.
Yeah. Exactly.
It came more from the public. Disney did not jump on that at all. I think they kind of got that. Well, one, Disney is smart. They wouldn't do that anyway. But also, that backfired so hard for Ghostbusters when Sony embraced that. There is no way in hell that they would have for Black Panther.
I was about to say, if you think that Disney didn't notice that, I don't know what to say. I don't understand why Hollywood is a monolith to some people in regards to like film production. Like, as a culture, I can understand. When it comes to film production, there are some people who prefer money over ideology, and Disney's one of them. I find that oddly respectable, too. And oddly enough, the only lefty politics in that freaking film are from the villain!
Yeah, exactly. Killmonger was straight up Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta help all these people because they look like me. And Panther's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
And his father's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And his council's, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And the only reason he really does anything at the end, it's not like he's like opening Wakanda's borders. He's like, we're going to do outreach programs.
Yeah. Yeah, because he straight up said, we're not going to bring refugees in because then you get all the problems of the refugees too.
Exactly. Say he
straight up said that.
See, John Nolte from Breitbart has been getting shit because he said that it's like a Trump BLM situation. And I'm like, where's he wrong? Because nobody
not wrong.
Yeah, nobody who has called John a racist for that has addressed the argument. It's like, if the argument is that poor, show me a wise one. Which is what blows my mind about some people, is they'll laugh and they'll giggle, oh, that's so silly. Oh, okay, if it's so silly, it should be hard to debunk. But that, of course, would require critical thinking.
Not to mention, Killmonger just straight up says, yeah, we deserve to be on top now.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't... How do you get more direct than that?
You don't.
But I've already seen lots of people tweeting, no, Killmonger was right. You know, I would have been on his side.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And I think we are going. That's what we're going to start getting. The think piece is that Killmonger was right.
Missing the fact that
he was the true hero. Yeah, I think they're going to capitalize on that last scene with him too. I think they are super going to capitalize on that bit.
So what, are we going to start seeing black suicides go up?
No, we're going to see that quote on T-shirts and in Twitter bios and all over the place. That last line of his. Yeah. That's exactly what we're going to see that framed. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like tell anybody who has that, I'm gonna say he was the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, alright, and final question from the Autist Whisperer wants to know, after the Warcraft movie, do we think it's possible for a 40K movie to be made?
No.
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 Nobody saw the Warcraft movie.
And the people who did thought it got gummed up anyway.
Yeah. I haven't heard nothing good about it.
It's funny, the only person I've actually talked to, like straight up talked to about that movie, was a guy in my local comic shop who's watching a bootleg copy of it while I was wandering through there. And I was like, hey, is that Warcraft? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, how is it? He's like, it sucks, but, you know, I got nothing else to do but just sit here and watch it. Like, I don't even know how far into the movie it was, but the guy was just so bored.
And that's what I heard. It was just fucking boring. So
yeah, 40K would...
No.
There is so much that could go wrong with a 40K movie, and there is so much that would go wrong with a 40K movie. So, nope, don't even attempt it.
It's not worth the time. Maybe a Netflix series or something like that, but like a full-on film, don't waste the money.
Yeah, you'll just have to wait for your $250 million Exterminatus scene.
Basically. Ah, goodness. Well, that be it.
That's it.
That is it.
That's it.
I'm surprised. But we went on for 40 minutes, so.
Well, about average, then.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, we appreciate you bringing the questions to us, as always. Don't forget, next week we'll be back with the podcast at the regular time, because there is no Women's Day. So, yeah, aside from that, we'll see you guys then. My name is Micah Curtis.
I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as the Hatman.
And we will see you guys next week. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.